What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Cleveland Browns Tailgate Show, Week 13. And it is an amazing opportunity for the Cleveland Browns to make a huge name for themselves as playoff contenders as they face the Tennessee Titans this week. I'm your host for the Cleveland Browns Tailgate Show, Shawn Stevenson. As you guys can see, my social accounts are in the top left and right-hand corners of the screen. Go ahead and give me a follow, SHWN Stevenson. I am a contributing writer for Sports Illustrated BrownsDigest. I actually had two articles this week talking about Baker Mayfield, how he performed this week, and what was the situation with this contract thus far. You guys can go ahead and check that over on the Sports Illustrated BrownsDigest website. Again, I want to thank you guys for joining me this morning for the Cleveland Browns Tailgate Show. The Browns are down in Tennessee right now, and kickoff is scheduled for 1 o'clock. So let's hop straight into it. The Cleveland Browns, again, will be traveling down to Nashville, Tennessee to face off the Titans in Nissan Stadium. And the last time these two teams met, most of you may remember it was last season in the season opener, and the Titans won 43-13. It was a very tough game to watch for Browns fans. Obviously, there was a lot of excitement last year after the improvement from Baker Mayfield in his rookie season and what he offered to the offense. But as we all know, the coaching experience wasn't there for this team. Just a lack of discipline. Pretty much play calling was an issue. And overall, it was pretty much just foreshadowing into what would happen into the rest of the season with Freddie Kitchens at the helm. Obviously, now there has been a huge change with Kevin Stefanski and general manager Andrew Berry. And they have done an amazing job of turning this team around. One, the Cleveland Browns are 8-3, and this will be their first winning season since 2007, which is huge for them. Obviously, we know that there's still 5 games to go and potentially anything could happen, but we obviously expect the Browns to win at least one more game in order to have a record over 500. But, we're past that point. We're focused on the playoffs, and it all starts, this week in this game against the Tennessee Titans. We're coming off a win against the Jacksonville Jaguars, which is big. And we're continuing to build momentum. Obviously, the only 3 losses that the team has so far is against the Pittsburgh Steelers, Baltimore Ravens, and then the Oakland Raiders before the bye week. So obviously, the team is just improving on a weekly basis, which is huge, and especially staying inside of that tight AFC North playoff race with the Steelers and then potentially the Ravens, depending on how they play the remainder of the season. They may be able to make a late playoff push as well. Now, looking at the Browns, what they've done so far this season, they currently have the 19th ranked offense in the NFL, followed by the 16th ranked defense. And this is going to be a big matchup for the defense this week, going against the Tennessee Titans run game featured by Derrick Henry. Obviously, the man is an absolute mammoth of a man coming out of the backfield, and he's going to be a handful. And he's been a handful for pretty much any NFL team since he was drafted 5 years ago, back in 2016. And the Browns' run defense is going to have to step up huge this week. You look at the fact that they're averaging, allowing 4.1 yards per carry. It's a group that's going to be around the top 10. But again, with Derrick Henry and just how talented of a player he is, you want your run defense to step up as much as possible. And it's going to be huge and incumbent on the Browns for their run defense to show up big this week against Derrick Henry. Now, looking at the Browns' offense, this is a group that has mixed performances depending on what the passing game does. Currently, the Browns are the 30th ranked passing offense in the NFL, only in front of the New York Jets and then the Baltimore Ravens, who are ranked dead last in the NFL in terms of passing yardage. But the Browns still have a group that can perform and make big plays when needed. You look at Baker Mayfield's performance against the Cincinnati Bengals, where he threw for 5 touchdowns. That was a huge game for him. Last week against the Jacksonville Jaguars, had 2 touchdowns, no turnovers, which is also good that he's, playing a clean game. And then you look at the rushing offense. This is the number 1 rushing offense in the NFL right now. They have over 1,700 yards, averaging 5 point yards per carry between Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, the best running back tandem in the NFL right now. And for some fans, that may be surprising that the Browns are back at number 1 when you look at how much the Titans run the ball. But of course, looking at the Tennessee Titans, they are a group that is second in the NFL in terms of rushing. They're over 1,700 yards as well, averaging 4.9 yards per carry, just behind the Browns by 35 yards in terms of rushing productivity. So again, this is potentially maybe another matchup where you see Nick Chubb and Derrick Henry trying to battle it out for that rushing title. Now, it might be a little difficult for Nick Chubb to get that rushing title this year just because he missed so many games dealing with that MCL sprain. But as long as he is healthy, the Browns always have a chance to win this game, as they are 5-1 in games that Nick Chubb plays. Now you look at the Tennessee Titans and their 10th ranked offense. This is a group, again, led by Derrick Henry. They run the ball, a lot of power formations, and then they allow to use Ryan Tannehill to use his legs off of play action. A very similar offense to what the Cleveland Browns like to run. Obviously, a little bit more power and gap schemes with them having Derrick Henry in the backfield. He's more of a one-cut runner. Just let him get downfield and, pretty much plow over people to get as many yards as possible. You look at the fact that they're a 22nd ranked passing team in terms of their passing productivity on offense, and that's obviously better than the Browns, but still not a group that relies too much on their passing game. This is a team that their foundation is running the ball, similar to the Browns. And on the flip side, looking at their defense, they currently have a 24th ranked defensive team. And with that, they are allowing 4.3 yards per carry. So a little bit more for their defense in terms of their rush. Their passing defense is 28th ranked in the league. So obviously there's some opportunities for Baker Mayfield and the receiving core to find some opportunities to make some big plays down the field. They will be without Kadero Hodge this week, so they will need someone to step up to be that player to make deep plays down the field, similar to what he's done over the past few weeks. Maybe this might be a potential opportunity for Donovan Peoples-Jones to come in and make a big play. And then obviously you want to see Jarvis Landry to continue to build upon that momentum that he had last week against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, on the flip side, looking at the Browns, again, this is going to be a tight playoff race. So these are the teams that you want to root for this week as the Browns continue to make that playoff push. The 49ers, you want them to beat the Bills this week as they play on Monday Night Football. The Bills, they're not necessarily in a situation where they directly impact the Browns' playoff seeding, but they are the third-ranked team right now in the AFC. So obviously, if they lose, that just gives a little bit more of a blueprint of the Browns to use if they do face off in the playoffs, depending on if they get the 4th seed or not, if the Browns take the 5th seed. And then also you look at the Cowboys versus the Ravens. This is a game that you would like for the Cowboys to win, obviously by the fact that it pushes the Ravens further down the playoff picture. And, if the Ravens don't make the playoffs, that's a win for the Cleveland Browns. And then lastly, to wrap up, you look at the Texans beating the Colts. What this will help do is bring down the Colts to the 8th seed and likely keep the Titans, higher up in the playoffs, as they will win the AFC South. But you would feel more confident in a matchup potentially against the Titans and the Colts, depending on, who has that better offensive unit. And then lastly, you will want the Bengals to beat the Dolphins this week. So in a situation that the Browns do lose, this is a big game for the Bengals, because in the situation that they do lose, if the Dolphins win, that will push them up to the 5th seed and bring the Browns down to the 6th or 7th seed, depending on what happens behind them. So the two big games definitely to watch this week will be the Texans beating the Colts and the Bengals beating the Dolphins. Now, moving over to the injury report this week, the Browns hampered by injury pretty much as they have been most of the season. Now, you have some people that say, well, the Browns aren't playing that many good teams, but at the end of the day, you play who's on your schedule. And even dealing with injuries, the Browns have figured out a way to win, and having players step up on a weekly basis to make big plays and get this team in the W column. So you look at the fact that cornerback Denzel Ward, he's still going to be out while he's dealing with that calf strain. Again, a similar injury to what Wyatt Teller dealt with earlier in the season. And it's going to be a week-by-week thing with Denzel Ward and the health of that calf to make sure that he doesn't strain it anymore, because obviously the most important time to have Denzel Ward is going to be in the back end of the matchups, and then especially the playoffs. You want him to be healthy. So I wouldn't expect them to rush Denzel Ward out there until they're fully confident that he's healthy and that calf is at full strength, or is about as full strength as it could be. Then you look at receiver Kadero Hodge, a player that had a big game last week. He's going to be out this week with a hamstring. Now, that's something that he did suffer from, I believe it was right before the bye week against the Raiders, or right after, where he was dealing with a hamstring injury that happened in pregame warmups. So obviously hamstrings is a soft tissue injury. So there's a strong possibility that this could be something that he'll be dealing with, throughout the rest of the season. Obviously, until that gets healthy, it's a little bit difficult to rehab in season with that hamstring. Also, they'll be missing receiver Taywan Taylor with a neck injury. He's more of a special teams player. He did have a big drop last week, but obviously having Taylor on the roster, low veteran presence, he's not going to be there. So with those two receivers out, expect more of a bigger snap count for Donovan Peoples-Jones at that third receiver spot. It's going to be a big week for him. Obviously, we remember him having that game-winning touchdown in the Bengals game. Let's see what he can do with more offensive snaps. And then also you can feel confident with him in the game being such a strong run blocker in the run game on the outside. Also, the safety that they signed this week in Tedrick Thompson, he's going to be out as well. Now, this is a non-injury related reason for him being out. He just cleared the exempt list on Saturday. Anytime a team does sign a player, they do have to go through COVID testing. And we all know that the Browns did have some COVID outbreaks over the last couple of weeks. Players being activated off that list this week were Joe Jackson and Sione Takitaki. So it's good to have them back in the lineup, especially going against a tough run offense in the Tennessee Titans. Then you look at defensive tackle Vincent Taylor. He's currently dealing with a knee injury. He's going to be listed as questionable as well. And then also backup center Nick Harris, the rookie, the fifth rounder. He's going to be listed as questionable as well as he deals with the neck injury. Now, looking at the Tennessee Titans, they had a little bit of a cleaner week, but they do have a lot of players dealing with knee injuries on their team. Not all of them is listed as out or questionable, but a lot of them did end up on the injury report. Look at the fact that they're going to be missing tight end Jonnu Smith. He's going to be out with a knee injury. This could be big for the Browns and actually a benefit. If you look at the few times that the Browns have played against the Titans, the tight end position has been one that has gave them a lot of trouble. You look at last week, Tyler Eifert was able to find some success against the Browns. Delaney Walker had 2 touchdowns in the season opener last year when they had faced off. And this week, with them missing Jonnu Smith, you feel a little bit more confident of what the Browns could potentially do in terms of limiting the tight end position. Obviously, they're going to be a factor in the run game, but with their backup tight ends now in the starting lineup, you feel a little bit more confident knowing that they're not their biggest receiving options with someone to, play against. Then you look at the fact that cornerback Adoree Jackson, he's going to be out as well with a knee injury. That potentially opens up some opportunities for, say, Rashard Higgins to find some opportunities. Again, they will be playing against Desmond King, who they traded for from the Los Angeles Chargers. He's a very good slot cornerback, someone that could potentially give the Browns receivers some issues. So obviously you want to see someone to step up in that receiving room with them missing their number 2 cornerback out. Also, offensive guard in the starting lineup, Roger Saffold, he's going to be listed as questionable heading into this game with an ankle injury. So that's something to monitor, as well as defensive tackle Jeffrey Simmons. He's going to be limited with a knee injury as well, as he's listed as questionable. We all know Jeffrey Simmons. He was a player that got drafted out of, I believe it was Mississippi State, or Texas A&M, was one of the two. Colors always mix me up. But Jeffrey Simmons was a player that they drafted that had a very bad knee injury back in college, but he was a top 10 talent that they were able to get in the second round. So definitely be interesting to see, how Jeffrey Simmons performs this week and if he performs, depending on that health of that knee. Now, looking at the Titans and their depth chart, you have quarterback Ryan Tannehill, running back Derrick Henry, obviously the 2 staples of this run game and this offense. And then behind Derrick Henry, you have Jeremy McNichols and Dante Foreman as the backup running backs. At fullback, they have Kari Blasingame. The Titans are one of the few teams, along with the Browns and NFL, that uses a true fullback. Then at receiver, you have A.J. Brown, Corey Davis, Adam Humphries, and Cameron Batson. A decent group, one that's not world beaters, but, they do have a very solid and good receiver in A.J. Brown, someone that has ability to make contested catches across the middle. He racks up a ton of yards after the catch. We've known the Browns to have some tackling issues in the past in previous seasons. Sometimes they will show up on occasion, but that's going to be huge for this week for the Browns to make sure that they're tackling in the open field. And you look at their tight ends, Anthony Fursker and Jeff Swaim are going to be the 2 players that are going to help replace Jonnu Smith, who's going to be out this week. And they're looking at their offensive line. You have David Quessenberry, who's now going to be their starting left tackle with Taylor Lewan on IR, potentially for the rest of the season. And then you have left guard Roger Saffold, again, who's listed as questionable with the ankle injury. So it'll be really important to see, how he plays this week, especially with that bum ankle. Maybe it might be a good opportunity for the Browns to get some penetration on the interior with him a little bit unhealthy. Then they have center Ben Jones, a solid player on the interior. right guard Nate Davis, and right tackle Dennis Kelly, who was the obvious replacement for Jack Conklin, who is now with the Cleveland Browns in his first revenge game against the Tennessee Titans since signing in free agency. Then you look at the defense. This group, more of a front 3-4 than a 4-3. At defensive end, you have Jack Crawford backed up by Larrell Murchison. Defensive tackle, again, Jeffrey Simmons. Depending on the health of him and how much he plays, they do have Tierre Tart, the backup defensive tackle. And then moving more into the interior, that traditional nose tackle, they have Daquan Jones. Then at the linebacker position, typically running with 4 linebackers, there will be no Jadeveon Clowney this week in this game, obviously, because Jadeveon Clowney is on IR. And a lot of Browns fans, there were some people that wanted to see Jadeveon Clowney, join and be on this Browns roster to add some pass rush across from Myles Garrett. But looking at the performances that Olivier Vernon has been able to provide over the past few weeks, that's actually huge for, this Browns defense. And also looking at the fact that even when he was healthy, Jadeveon Clowney wasn't offering a lot. They also had signed Vic Beasley in free agency. They dedicated a lot of money, to that edge rushing group, and they never really got a lot of production. Vic Beasley is no longer even with the team. So you look at Derek Roberson as one of their edge players, along with Harold Landry III, who was with the team last year as a player that was getting some pressure on Baker Mayfield. Then in the interior linebacker position, you have Rashaan Evans, linebacker out of Alabama, and Will Compton. And then lastly, looking at the back end of their secondary, you look at Malcolm Butler and Desmond King, a very solid cornerback duo. Again, no Adoree Jackson. So Breon Borders and Chris Milton will be 2 players that they'll look to, hold down that other quarterback position. Then at safeties, they do have a very solid safety duo in Kenny Vaccaro and Kevin Byard. Kevin Byard is by far one of the best free safeties in the league. So they'll definitely be huge on Baker Mayfield of, again, protecting the ball, which he's done with success over the past few weeks. And then backing him up are Joshua Kalua and Amani Hooker at the free safety spot. Again, the Cleveland Browns are in a situation where they have improved coaching compared to last year. You look at the season opener that they had with Freddie Kitchens at the helm versus Kevin Stefanski now, and it's going to be a completely different game, strictly by the fact that they have coaches that teach discipline. This wasn't something that the Browns had a lot of last year. There was very undisciplined play. Actually, the first week, the Browns had the most penalties in the NFL game in like 7 years. When we look at the fact that they're getting flagged for offensive and defensive holding, false starts, defensive pass interference, offensive pass interference. There are so many penalties last year in this game. It quickly made the game get out of hand. And even in the situation that the Browns were only down 9 points heading into the fourth quarter, just undisciplined play and poor play calling by the coaches really put the Browns down in the hole quicker than you would want them to be in. You look at the fact that Freddie Kitchens, in his tenure as the Browns head coach, he really shown the ability to play call at the beginning of the game. But once he got off of those scripted plays, it was very difficult for him to consistently call plays that would move the offense down the field. You ran into the issue where they were running the ball enough, but they were either running the ball in too obvious situations or they weren't running the ball effectively. That was definitely a big issue that you dealt with Freddie Kitchens last year. Now you look at Kevin Stefanski in his first year as the Browns head coach. He's been a coach that has been able to coach this team in a way where they've improved on a weekly basis. He's had an utter dedication to running the ball every single week, week in and week out, even when Nick Chubb went down. And you can feel confident in this offense that they will be able to run the ball with success when the opportunity presents itself. That was something that they dealt with, on a consistent basis last year, that you didn't necessarily know when they were going to run the ball. Nick Chubb actually had the rushing title up to one point, and it was actually lost because Freddie Kitchens didn't run the ball enough in order for Nick Chubb to get that rushing title last year. But, Kevin Stefanski, he comes in, he's very disciplined. He understands, this is what the offense does well. One of the things that I've noticed the most is is that Kevin Stefanski knows what he has in Baker Mayfield in the first year in this system. He understands that in order for this team to be successful, you want Baker Mayfield to be a game manager, which is nothing wrong with that. When you have a successful run game behind Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, you really just want your quarterback to take care of the ball. And that's something that Baker Mayfield has done. You know, look at last week against the Jacksonville Jaguars. It was really an opportunity for him to throw the ball after dealing with inclement weather in Cleveland, as they were down in Florida last week. But even when there was bad weather games in Cleveland, Baker Mayfield wasn't really turning the ball over, which was important. You know, he didn't really have any touchdowns, but he didn't have any interceptions. So it's kind of a, you know, it breaks itself even in terms of what he does when it comes to handling the ball. And if Baker Mayfield is able to continue to manage the game, make smart plays, continue to, you know, push drives forward and allow the offense to click and just get down the field, that's really going to be the Browns' biggest formula for success, you know, not even just in this game, but for the rest of the season and potentially into the playoffs. Kevin Stefanski is a very good coach. I would definitely say he's been one of the biggest reasons why this team has been so successful, because of his dedication to his offensive scheme. One, understanding that the personnel for his outside zone and gap scheme and running the ball has been so successful, and finding different ways to create mismatches against the defense in order for them to find success running the ball. You know, Kevin Stefanski, again, in his first year has done a tremendous job of coaching his team up. They're very disciplined. He's been smart with challenges, timeouts, and that's really going to be the biggest difference in this game compared to last year is the coaching. Coaching was the downfall of the Browns last year in this matchup the first time, and hopefully this is a situation where they'll be able to improve. Now, again, the Cleveland Browns Tailgate Show is sponsored by Focus Clothing. Focus Clothing is a small Black-owned apparel company in Cleveland. You can take advantage of their holiday sale and get yourself a new Focus trucker hat. Shop today at FocusClothingCLE.com. Again, Focus Clothing CLE, also on Facebook and Instagram. So, you know, as we get back into it, we'll go ahead and look at our quarterback comparison for this week. You know, obviously, this is going to be a very big game for Baker Mayfield. And on the flip side, you also have Ryan Tannehill, a player that came into Tennessee and pretty much reinvigorated his career, which has been huge for him. You look at the fact that he didn't necessarily turn out to be the franchise quarterback that the Miami Dolphins needed to turn that franchise around. But also, I could say that their coaching staff wasn't the greatest either when Tannehill's with the team. But now with the Tennessee Titans, he's pretty much reinvigorated his career. You look at the playoff run that they had last year, going all the way to the AFC Championship. They're a team that when Tannehill is, you know, using his legs, whether that's on bootlegs or play actions, scrambling for extra yardage when need be, Tannehill has shown the ability to command this offense with confidence. And that's really been the biggest change with the Tennessee Titans since then, moving on from Marcus Mariota. And really, his ability to throw the ball with a little bit more consistency has been one of the things that the Tennessee Titans offense has benefited from since they've moved on from Marcus Mariota. But looking at Baker Mayfield and the Browns currently this season, you know, Baker Mayfield has essentially been a game manager. And that's really all Kevin Stefanski has asked from him, is to manage the game. Don't throw turnovers, don't fumble the ball, don't throw interceptions. Just play a clean game as much as you can. And, you know, from there, they'll be able to find as much success as they can on the ground. Now, you look at Baker Mayfield and what he's done over the past few weeks, you know, he has no interceptions in his last 123 pass attempts. That goes all the way back to the game against the Cincinnati Bengals, where the first pass that he threw was an interception. And then from there, he threw all, you know, completions from that point. Now, from the past 4 games that they've played since the bye week, the past 3 games that they played against the bye week, he hasn't thrown, any interceptions, but he didn't throw any touchdowns either. Now, obviously there were some inclement weather games, a lot of snow, a lot of heavy winds, a lot of rain playing in Cleveland. Now you want to see Baker Mayfield come into this game similar to what he did last week, where if they need to throw the ball, this is the team to do it against. Again, the Tennessee Titans secondary is only the 28th ranked unit in the league. That obviously shows there will be some opportunities for them to throw the ball with some success. They're already missing their number 2 corner in Adoree Jackson. That's an opportunity for the receiving core to beat someone in man coverage, find some soft areas against the zone, because you're going against a corner that's lower in the depth chart, whether that be Rashard Higgins or Donovan Peoples-Jones or Jarvis Landry, depending on how Kevin Stefanski wants to attack those matchups. It's going to be big for these receivers to get some separation for Baker Mayfield to throw the ball. On the same token, you look at Baker Mayfield and his mechanics. Last week, he did miss some throws that he should have made. You look at the fact that he threw not the most accurate pass to Kareem Hunt out of the backfield on a wheel route. He also missed him in the on the left side flat, throwing the ball behind him in a situation where they converted a 3rd down. You also look at him missing Jarvis Landry. He missed him on the end zone, on the left pylon early in the game, and then also on a 3rd down situation off of play action, he threw a ball too hard where Jarvis Landry couldn't get to it, where it was a simple check down play. Those things all come down to Baker Mayfield and his mechanics. Offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt was around on the Green Bay Packers when Aaron Rodgers had his best career season. You expect him to be able to coach up Baker Mayfield for him to improve on a weekly basis, when it comes down to his mechanics, whether that be throwing the ball. His ability to deliver the ball with touch is one of the things that I've been talking about in many articles with Baker Mayfield. His footwork, something that really digressed from his rookie season from last year. Obviously, coaching, something we just talked about, is a huge impact on that. But you want to see Baker Mayfield in his footwork improve. His ability to slide in the pocket to flying throwing lanes. Look at the fact that he missed Rashard Higgins last week wide open in end zone after a pick play on a slant route. He got the ball to him late, but it was obvious that he couldn't see past the defensive lineman that was blocking that slant route that Rashard Higgins ran. His ability to slide and maneuver in the pocket and find throwing lanes can make the difference between that being an incomplete pass, the Browns only getting 3 points, and a Rashard Higgins touchdown. You want to see Mayfield improve on those mechanics this week. I fully expect Kevin Stefanski to run plenty of play action similar to what he did last week. In situations where it's 1st or 2nd down, where you think the Browns might run the ball, they come out with a play action. That's huge for this offense because, there was something that Kevin Stefanski talked about before this team started in the offseason, is the marriage between the run and the pass. He wants the pass to look like the run and the run to look like the pass. Where you can do things like that confuses the defense and has just a slight hesitation and allows players to get open down the field. You look at what Kadero Hodge was able to do last week. Off of play action, that slight hesitation by 3rd-level defenders gives the quarterback a little bit more time in a slightly bigger window to deliver the ball in. And if Mayfield has the time and is able to play on the run, he has more than enough ability and throwing talent to get that ball down the field. And I fully expect him to do that with some success. Again, the Tennessee Titans defense, in terms of pass defense, is only the 28th ranked unit in the NFL. I expect him to, again, also to, find success running the ball this week because they allow 4.3 yards per carry. But again, throwing the ball is going to be very big this week, and Baker Mayfield has to step up in this game. And not only just this week, but also next week against the Ravens, and then the last game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. We need him to step up now because these are the games that matter most. I get it. There's 5 games left in the season, and every game matters when you're trying to make the playoffs. But when you look at who they're playing against, you fully expect this Browns team to beat the New York Giants and New York Jets. No exceptions, no excuses. The Tennessee Titans last year in the season opener, they embarrassed you, point blank period. Obviously, there's a different coach, but a lot of those players that were on the team last year are still here. And when a team embarrasses you like that at home and on the season opener, you remember something like that. So there definitely should be, some momentum and some fire under these players in order for them to perform well this week. And then also On the same token, the Baltimore Ravens, they embarrassed you this year in the season opener. We only scored 6 points. The Pittsburgh Steelers, first pass attempt, a pick 6. These teams have been able to fluster Baker Mayfield on a very high level. And if you're going to be a franchise quarterback, point blank period, you have to perform against the top level competition. Now, the Baltimore Ravens, they may not be a playoff team this year because of a third-year slump that Lamar Jackson went through, but they're still a good team. They have a good defense. That doesn't change. They can still run the ball. If they will off some wins, they potentially still can make the playoffs without a doubt. But these are the teams that have basically little brother you in the NFL. And we all understand that the quarterback position is the most important position on the field. And at the end of the day, the Browns only go as far as Baker Mayfield takes them. I don't care how much they want to run the ball. I don't care how good the defense plays. At the end of the day, if your quarterback doesn't perform, you're not going to win in the playoffs, and you're definitely not going to win the Super Bowl. And at the end of the day, the reason why you play this game is to win a Super Bowl. You don't play this game just to win during the regular season. You just don't play just to get to the playoffs. You get to the playoffs, you win games in the playoffs, and you win a Super Bowl. It doesn't matter at what level you play at in any sport. The only reason why you play the game is to get a championship. And the Browns can't do that without a quarterback that can step up in big moments and big games and make big-time plays in big-time moments. And that's the quarterback that the Cleveland Browns need Baker Mayfield to be. If they don't get that out of him, you could say the Browns make it to the playoffs, but what all does it mean if it's just a one and done and they don't even perform well in the playoffs? You want to see this team get to that point, to that level of playoffs, and then perform when it matters most. If they lose a close game, that's fine. But if it's just another blowout or it's just the Browns being the Browns performance, then how do we really view this team? At the end of the day, I will say it on a week in and week out basis until he shows it on a consistent note. Baker Mayfield is the player that determines how far the Browns go. They'll run the ball. They'll run it with success, but you can't run it every single play. You simply can't. And the Browns need Baker Mayfield to step up. Now, looking at the Tennessee Titans, Ryan Tannehill has been that player for them that has been able to take advantage of the opportunities presented to him. Now, he had a lot of questions in terms of, is he really a franchise quarterback when he was with the Miami Dolphins? They gave him 5 years. It didn't work out. They moved on. It's somewhat a similar situation of what we're getting from Baker Mayfield, similar to how the Dolphins dealt with Ryan Tannehill. He moves to his second team. He gets on a team that they actually can run the ball and take advantage of his skill set. He's a mobile quarterback. He can use his legs. He can run for touchdown. He can move, deliver the ball on the run. These are all things that you want from a mobile quarterback, especially in a run-focused offense. Ryan Tannehill has shown ability, especially last year in that great playoff run that they had up to the AFC Championship until they met against the Kansas City Chiefs, who were the eventual Super Bowl champions. They were a team that run the ball with extreme success, but they were also able to throw the ball down the field with Ryan Tannehill. If they're able to do that on a consistent basis, this could mean a lot of trouble for the Browns in that third level, that secondary. You look at the fact that they're already missing Denzel Ward. Andrew Sendejo, while he's been playing better over the few weeks, has still been a little bit questionable at some moments. They already lost Ronnie Harrison to IR and potentially for the rest of the season with a shoulder injury. Now, Ronnie Harrison was a good player, but, health concerns are definitely there. Carl Joseph on the back end, he's been a little shaky in coverage. These are the players that you needed to step up in matchups like this. But now you don't have Denzel Ward. You don't have Ronnie Harrison. Someone has to step on the back end. Andrew Sendejo, this is a good opportunity to rewrite the narrative that you've had with the team this year and provide some solid play on that third level. Don't allow big plays behind you. That was something that killed the Browns last year, were deep plays down the field. A.J. Brown in his 3 receptions was over 100 yards from play action and yards after the catch. That's something that they'll look to take advantage of. And you can get tons of yards after the catch on play action, bootlegs, the same way how the Browns run their offense, and they love to use play action and bootlegs and rollouts for their quarterback to get them out of the pocket. It allows players to hesitate on defense to figure out what's going on, and that slight separation is what makes the difference between a catchable ball and having a bigger deliverable target for the quarterback. And Ryan Tannehill has done that with success. But also on the flip side, Tannehill is a player that may get a little careless with the ball. You look at the fact that he's tied for third most turnover-worthy plays with 16 in NFL, behind only Carson Wentz and one other quarterback. It's not coming to the top of my head right now, but 16 turnover-worthy plays. That shows that he has the ability to turn the ball over, but sometimes it just comes down to the defense making that play. And the defense for the Browns has shown up the most when they're able to create turnovers. And if they're able to do that on a consistent basis, that could definitely help this unit, come up huge when it matters most. So, I expect, Tannehill to find some success this week. You look at the fact that he threw only for a touchdown last week, but the team still put up 45 points. So, in the situation that the Browns' third level and that secondary isn't able to step up, that could cause trouble, for some of these players. Now, the run game obviously is going to be something that's going to be huge this week. And with that, this is the perfect opportunity to have a return of the Who You Got series, something I used to do earlier in the season, as teams were still finding their identity and understanding who players were, where basically I do a running back comparison between each team. And this is huge this week. You look at the fact that you have Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt going against the king, Derrick Henry. So looking at Nick Chubb and what he's able to do on the ground this year thus far, he's been amazing for the Browns, especially in the fourth quarter. You look at the fact that he's averaging 12.6 yards per carry in the fourth quarter. Over the last 2 games, he's had rushes for 50 yards in the fourth quarter over the 2 of the last 3 games. And he's been a player that, as the game goes on and they start to wear out these defenses, him and Kareem Hunt take full advantage, of those opportunities. And it's very tough on the defense when they're able to just pound the ball with Nick Chubb. And then you bring in a fresh leg Kareem Hunt who can run the ball. He's a very explosive runner. He's kind of like that player that he finds a hole and then he bursts through it with some quickness. And he's able to, rip off big runs for this offense. Last week, obviously, he only had 60 yards, but that's still 6.2 yards per clip anytime he touches the ball. And that's very difficult for a defensive line to have to deal with on a weekly basis, especially when throughout the game they continue to run the ball, and it sets up the play action. And in that situation, they don't go directly after the quarterback, what helps open up the pass game. But with that, Nick Chubb really is the foundation of this run game because he has such power, vision, and just cutback ability, running the ball. You look at the fact that anytime that there's a hole that closes up and there's a cutback lane available, Nick Chubb has the patience when he's running the ball to find that cutback lane. And then you look at the different running style of Kareem Hunt. Again, he's that player when he gets on the outside, he bursts through the hole quickly. So you see him, whenever he touches the ball, ripping off 7-8 yard or 10+ gains whenever he touches the ball because of the different running styles that they have. And again, that wears out on the defense as they get tired, towards the end of the game. But on the flip side, you look at Derrick Henry, the man is an absolute beast. There's no other way to put it. He's the best running back in the NFL right now. Dalvin Cook, he's having a good season, obviously, but with Derrick Henry has been able to do at his size and the speed that he has at that size, it's almost incomparable. It's I would say the comparison with Derrick Henry is like having someone with Derrick Henry's size but close to Nick Chubb's speed. And now if you remember Brandon Jacobs for the New York Giants, Brandon Jacobs was huge. That was like a defensive lineman playing running back at like 6'4", 6'5", and 220 plus pounds, but you're also running a 4.4. That's a lot for a defense to handle, especially for smaller cornerbacks, linebackers. If they don't tackle well, that could definitely become an issue. But Derrick Henry is a player that runs with so much power, so much anger. It's very difficult for just one person to bring him down, and he's been able to do that with so much success. And he's coming off a dominant performance against the Indianapolis Colts where he had 3 touchdowns. You look at the fact that he's had over 55 carries in the last 2 games. So he has a lot of mileage on his body, but he's been able to hold up. Now, we don't know, what that's going to do to him in terms of his career down the long term. but he's definitely a player that has a lot of touches and a lot of mileage on his body already. He has 8 games this season with at least 20 carries. So they're definitely going to be handing the ball off to him a lot this week. And it's going to be very incumbent for whatever team, runs the ball with success is going to be the team likely that's going to be dealing with the league if, both teams play a clean game, because running the ball is all about clock possession and controlling the time of possession this week. And also, Derrick Henry, he leads the NFL in rushing yards. This is a player that when they have him, whether it be from a halfback off tackles, pounding it in the interior with halfback dives, he's going to be a player that there won't be many situations where he's not falling forward. So it's going to be really big for the Browns offensive line to have a big game. And then also the Browns offensive line being able to continue to open up holes for Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. This is definitely a game that's going to be a battle on the trenches for both teams. The defensive and offensive lines are going to have huge matchups this week. And whatever team is able to open up consistent holes for that team and then also get penetration in the run game on the defensive line could really be the difference between who wins this game and who loses. Now, again, I want to thank you guys so much for joining me for the Browns Tailgate Show. The Cleveland Browns Tailgate Show is sponsored by Focus Clothing. You can Focus Clothing is a small Black-owned apparel company in Cleveland. You could take advantage of their holiday sale and gift a premium fabric crop hoodie for a family member or your lovely lady friend. You can shop today with them at focusclothingcle.com. Again, that is focusclothingcle.com.
Who said that t-shirt was only for the summer?
Again, that is Focus Clothing. Be sure to check them out on social media at Focus Clothing CLE. But again, looking at the Browns and again their coaching staff, one of the things that I really was thinking about was the faith that Kevin Stefanski still could have in Harrison Bryant. Now, Harrison Bryant, again, a rookie, he's been playing very well. He's been out-snapping David Njoku on a weekly basis. He's been a player that has made some plays, but on the same token has had some very costly turnovers. Look at the fumble that he had against the the Las Vegas Raiders. That was something that definitely changed momentum in a close game, even though the Browns lost by 10 points. And you look at last week, coming out of the second half, he fumbles on a catch at the start of the second half and then puts the Jaguars in good field position. And then, of course, they score a touchdown to, take the lead after halftime. It gets very tough to trust on a player that's constantly putting you in a position that's negative for the team. I feel like a lot of the plays that Harrison Bryant or the mistakes that he's made has come at potentially the worst times. Either the momentum of the drive is going well, and then he catches the ball and the fumbles. And, when do you put that player on the hot seat? Not in terms of cutting the player, but promoting, David Njoku to more snaps. Now, he's a player that's been able to, catch the ball with success down the sideline. And that's something that we would like to see out of this tight end group is a little bit more production in the receiving game. With Austin Hooper, of course, Harrison Bryant has been a good player in terms of run blocking, and that's really why he gets the nod over David Njoku is the production that he's able to provide in terms of run blocking. But on the same token, you need these players to step up in big moments and make big time plays. And I just feel like Harrison Bryant has been on the wrong page, or the wrong side of a turnover. He's been able to play well in terms of special teams, but, it gets to a point where he's still a rookie player and he's sometimes can make those rookie mistakes. And the situation, that he continues to fumble the ball or isn't catching passes when he's open, these are situations where okay, now you want to put in a veteran player, in those moments. And that's really where you like to see David Njoku step up and get some more opportunities. If he can do that, that can definitely help out this team on offense. And I have full faith in Harrison Bryant that he'll be able to step up, and play better this week. But again, on the same token, if he continues to have these mistakes, there's nothing wrong with Kevin Stefanski, having him, relegate him to the bench until he's able to, fix those fumbling issues, be a little bit more secure-handed, and again, find out what you have with David Njoku in this offense. Again, he's shown ability to catch the ball with contested catches, but again, he just hasn't had that many opportunities with Harrison Bryant outsnapping him in the lineup. Now you look at the Browns secondary, can this undermanned Browns secondary step up on the back end? They're already without Denzel Ward this week as he's still dealing with a calf injury. Ronnie Harrison's on IR. Anderson Dejo is a player that he really gives a lot of us mixed emotions. You don't really know what he's going to do on a week in and week out basis. And you really want him to step up and improve. I would say that the corners are going to have a huge week. You look at the fact that Terrence Mitchell and Kevin Johnson are going to be the two players that's going to be manning up against Corey Davis and A.J. Brown. You need them to have big games because you don't have your number one corner. Now, these are obviously two players that are more depth pieces. Kevin Johnson, he's really been your nickel player. But Terrence Mitchell, on the flip side, has been very good as your number two. You don't have Greedy Williams, may not have him at all this season. And, you need these veteran players to step up, especially when you're dealing with so many injuries on the back end. You can't have players running open. When they do have play action, they need to stick with their man. That was something that killed the Browns last year, was off of play action, players either not making open field tackles against receivers, especially A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown is a big receiver. He's 6'2", very strong. He breaks tackles after the catch, and you need corners that can be short tacklers. That's something that the Browns corners have been very frustrating with, and not just this year, over the pretty much past decade is, they do those little ticky-tacky, they'll throw a shoulder, but they won't wrap up. This is a team where you have to wrap up. You're going against Derrick Henry, so you have to tackle in the open field on the outside the numbers. Terrence Mitchell, this is a really big game for him. He's been a corner that has came up in run support and been able to tackle well. This is definitely the week where you have to do it. And even in a situation that you're not able to tackle Derrick Henry on your own, you definitely need to get, multiple people, to him. But again, this secondary, you need them to play strong. In man coverage, try to minimize separation this week. And this is not a team in the Tennessee Titans that, just throws the ball with extreme amounts of success, but they take advantage of play action. And we've seen what play action can do in terms of the pass game and the, success that you can have throwing the ball off of play action with the Browns this year. Being able to trust your eyes, follow the man, and not always be following the eyes of the quarterback. That definitely can cause some issues because when, third level players are looking in the backfield, that allows for players to get open down the field and get behind the coverage. Blown assignments could be the difference between this game. You need your secondary to play a very clean game. Be physical. The Titans are a very physical team, and that was something that the Browns struggled with against the Las Vegas Raiders. It was a bad weather game, and that may not be the same case in Tennessee, but they were out physical and, just outmanning the Cleveland Browns at the point of attack, at the line of scrimmage, in the trenches. And, obviously the secondary isn't going to be the trenches, but the receivers they have on the outside for the Titans are very physical. They're big, they're strong, and, the Browns cornerbacks have to come up and really make some big plays this week. Now, on the flip side, you look at Derrick Henry. How do you slow down Derrick Henry? That's a question that's been asked, for the last 4 years that no one really still doesn't have an answer to. Our lead editor for Sports Illustrated BrownsDigest, Pete Smith, released an article. You guys can check this out after the show before the game starts of how do you tackle Derrick Henry? Those are questions that have to be answered. And I feel that the biggest thing that you have to do in terms of slowing down Derrick Henry is that you have to have 11 hats to the football. He's a player that's extremely difficult to bring down with just one person. You look at Myles Garrett, Sheldon Richardson, potentially Olivier Vernon. Those are players that I feel confident could tackle Derrick Henry one-on-one. But once it gets to that second level where he gets on the outside, corners, safeties, linebackers, they have to tackle as a group. You need 2-3 people to tackle him on a consistent basis. And as the game wears on, defenders get less and less urgent to go tackle him. He's a very big guy, and I talked about it when we did the running back comparison. You look at the fact that defenses that face off against the Browns get very tired and have a tough time tackling Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt as the game continues. Even though it's only one man, that is still the exact same case when it comes to Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry runs the ball with extreme confidence, extreme power, and he will run your ass over, excuse my language, without a shadow of a doubt if you don't come in with a strong tackle. You have to hit him at the legs. You can't tackle him up high. And again, you have to get players, swarming the football, 11 hats to the football. Just simple defensive mechanics that you have to do when you're facing off against Derrick Henry. If you don't do it on a consistent basis, it's going to be really tough to hold up against him. And, if you're not doing it at a high level, that could really be the main difference between, what the Browns are able to do this week in terms of slowing down that run game. Because we know that they're going to run the ball. If they're going to run the ball early and often, first and second down, you almost can guarantee if it's not a play action, Derrick Henry's getting the ball. This is a run-first team, and they really have such a focal point on Derrick Henry that you have to stack the box. And in the situation that you have, 7, 8-man boxes, that only really leaves three players on the outside in terms of the pass game. And that's why you really have to have this Brown secondary step up, because you're fully going to expect Carl Joseph to be stepping down in the box as that strong safety, to have 8 men in the box to slow down Derrick Henry. So expect a lot of linebacker play. You need B.J. Goodson, Mac Wilson, Sione Takitaki to have strong games and being able to tackle at the second level to really limit how many opportunities Derrick Henry has going against cornerbacks and safeties on the third level. Now, again, the Cleveland Browns Tailgate Show is brought to you by Sports Illustrated BrownsDigest. You can check out the website every day for team news, game day threads, and featured content. Again, check out the website at si.com/NFL/Browns. I will have a live game thread that you guys can check out right after the Tailgate Show. And then also on the same token, you can check out the tailgate recipe of the week this week, which is Bourbon Blueberry Lemonade. Again, that goes up on the website. You guys can check that out as well. And we're going to go ahead and continue to hop right back into this. And go ahead and find it really quickly. Here we go. So one of the things that I feel was very underrated this week is what sort of impact will Sione Takitaki have on the defense this week? You look at the fact that he's been activated off of the COVID reserve list this week, and they didn't have him last week. And James Robinson was able to have over 100 yards on the ground last week. So obviously you want the Browns to be a lot more stout in their run defense this week, going up against them. Sione Takitaki right now is actually one of the highest graded run defensive linebackers in the NFL. He actually has the third highest grade according to Pro Football Focus in terms of run defense grade with an 85.4. And his ability as that strong side linebacker playing that Sam linebacker position has been huge for this Browns defense. He holds the edge very well. You also have Olivier Vernon typically on the same side, and they've been able to find success in terms of stopping the run, which is huge because the ability to push players back into the interior is very big for a team that runs, handoffs outside the tackle or toss plays, which Derrick Henry, even at his size, does with success. When you're able to turn those runs inside, that brings more men in smaller run lanes for the running back to have. And Sione Takitaki does an amazing job at sealing the edge and turning things back inside. And he has to, at an extremely high level, which he's done so far this season, he has to do that in the run game this week, especially against Derrick Henry. Don't be surprised if you see some situations where Sione Takitaki is able to tackle Derrick Henry one-on-one. Again, he's a very strong player in terms of run defense, and he has to, do that at a very high level. You got a comment right here. They said that Henry is a Mack truck on the field, which is very true. These are one of the things that you have to deal with on a weekly basis when you're dealing with Derrick Henry. He's a very hard player to tackle, and Sione Takitaki is going to be one of those players that help, provide that on the defense. And then also, again, they're just the Browns linebackers. You want to see B.J. Goodson and Malcolm Smith, see them come in and tackle at a high level, against Derrick Henry. Then on the same token, this is going to be a battle in the trenches for both teams. And how will this defensive line perform with Myles Garrett back in the lineup? You look at the fact that you didn't have him for the last 2 games as he was dealing with COVID-19 and positive tests as he has some symptoms. You hope that he's healthy and he can make it through a full game, because you don't know what type of impact the COVID could have had on his respiratory system. Hopefully he's back at full strength and he can help with this running game. Myles Garrett is one of the few players in the NFL that I have full confidence in a one-on-one situation that he could tackle Derrick Henry in the open field. And his ability to get after the quarterback is very underrated for this team and how much we need him. Now, Olivier Vernon has stepped up huge, for this team, having 5 sacks over 4 games after having basically none up to that point or before a few weeks ago. And you need Olivier Vernon to step up big this week and to have another big game. Sheldon Richardson and Larry Ogunjobi, these are 2 players, they're basically on contract years. Larry Ogunjobi, after this year, he's going to be an unrestricted free agent after he's finished out his rookie contract. Sheldon Richardson, he's getting paid decent money. That's going to be a potential player that Andrew Berry could look at in terms of his contract. Either it'd be an extension to open up some money, or, they decide to sign another player in free agency at a cheaper cap hit. Those are 2 players that are really playing for their contract and their futures with the Cleveland Browns. In that situation, you want to see them have big games against good rushing attacks. You have the Baltimore Ravens next week, another matchup where they like to run the ball that you need to see them step up. You have the Pittsburgh Steelers with, James Conner and Benny Snell, 2 players that have ran the ball with some success against the Browns. You want to see Sheldon Richardson and Larry Ogunjobi step up, in that situation. You do have the rookie defensive tackle and interior, Jordan Elliott, a player that has been a little bit more, adept in terms of creating pressure on interior with his pass rush, something that he did really good back in college at Mizzou. But you want to see him, grade well in terms of run defense. Vincent Taylor, he's dealing with a knee injury, but you want him to step up. Porter Gustin, Adrian Claiborne, Joe Jackson, who just got activated off the COVID reserve list. These are all players that you want to see come in at a constant rotation. You want to keep these defensive linemen fresh, and that's something that I fully expect defensive coordinator Joe Woods to do, is to continue to rotate these defensive linemen and keep them fresh throughout this game to limit how much they tire down against Derrick Henry and they have to tackle. You need to stay inside your gap. One player being in the wrong gap or leaving his gap at the wrong time, Derrick Henry can take full advantage of that and burst through the hole. Again, even at his size, he's a very fast player once he gets downhill. And being a downhill runner, when you're able to maintain your gap and not allow cutback lanes or free runs for Derrick Henry, that could really make the difference between him having those long 50-yard, 75-yard touchdown that he's had. And then also on the flip side, not getting too deep into the backfield on situations that they started to notice that the Browns are getting upfield a lot. When you get too upfield and against offense, that's when offensive coordinators like to throw screens. And some of you may remember last year, Derrick Henry had a 75-yard touchdown off of a screen because the Browns defensive linemen and linebackers got caught too far upfield from, basically run defense. They need to stay in their gaps and, on passing downs, be cognizant of Derrick Henry out of the backfield because they do throw him screens. He's not just strictly a person that just runs the ball. He will catch the ball out of the backfield and with success. He's done it throughout this season. He's done it throughout his career. And again, this has to be a game where the Browns perform, and it has to be a very clean game for them. Now, looking at some matchups to watch this week, I would say the Browns cornerbacks versus A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown torched the secondary last year, and you're going to be without Denzel Ward. These cornerbacks have to be physical with him. They have to tackle in the open field. Terrence Mitchell, Kevin Johnson, Tavier Thomas. These are players that you want to see step up when they're matched up against A.J. Brown and tackle in the open field. Because if you don't, he will rack up yards after catch, and yards after catch, yak, and yards after contact is something that A.J. Brown puts up on a weekly basis. He's the number one receiver for this offense. And, Ryan Tannehill has a very good connection with him. There's no Jonnu Smith this week, so that's more target share going towards A.J. Brown. You have to be physical at the point of catch, contesting balls with your hands, making sure they're hitting him and wrapping up. is going to be huge for the Browns cornerbacks this week and at a very high and consistent level for this Browns secondary and limiting what A.J. Brown can do and force another receiver to beat you. Corey Davis and Adam Humphries, while they're decent receivers, aren't world beaters. If you're able to, rotate some man coverage over A.J. Brown and limit what he can do down the field with Andrew Sendejo, that can make a huge difference in terms of forcing Ryan Tannehill to beat you with Corey Davis and Adam Humphries, players that haven't really shown that throughout their career. And then you look at the Browns linebackers versus Derrick Henry. There's going to be numerous, situations that the Browns linebackers will be faced off against Derrick Henry because he finds so much success getting to the second level. Now, Derrick Henry is a very strong player, but linebackers, they're around the same size as most running backs in NFL. And these are the players that you expect to be physical at the point of attack. Pretty much most of this game, again, just because the Browns linebackers hasn't shown a lot in terms of coverage, you want to see them playing downhill all game. The more you can come downhill in the gap and making sure you're scraping across the offensive line and not allowing clean releases, from that starts at the Browns defensive line for the Titans offensive line to get to the second level. The Browns linebackers need to be coming downhill, with a full head of steam to really take on Derrick Henry. If they're playing passive, they're not coming downhill, it's going to be extremely hard to tackle him. If they're able to do that with success and also get off linebacker, tight end blocks on the edge and seal the edge versus Derrick Henry and force everything inside, that can be huge for them. So definitely expect, B.J. Goodson. This is a player that needs to have a huge game. He has the most snaps out of any linebacker on this team. He's really that vocal captain for this linebacking core and for the defense as a whole. And he's really been that player that defensive coordinator Joe Woods has really relied on in that linebacker group and on the defense to keep everything together. He's been playing better on a weekly basis. And, he's really grown since the beginning of being on this team where he was struggling in early weeks in terms of pass coverage. He definitely can provide better coverage in terms of the middle of the field. Michael Smith does that with success. Mack Wilson, this definitely a player that you need for him to perform at a higher level. His coverage has been, very underwhelming this season. I want to see him play at a higher level, which is something that the Browns definitely need in terms of pass coverage. And then also just tackling. He's a player that can come down, and lay a good hit on a receiver or a tight end across the middle, but you want to see him tackle against Derrick Henry. And then lastly, a big matchup is definitely going to be, the Browns defensive line versus the Titans offensive line. You look at the Titans offensive line, what they've been able to do this season. This is a group that, has been able to open up numerous holes for Derrick Henry. And again, they're going to run the ball. Last week, they were able to open up enough holes where Derrick Henry was able to run for 3 touchdowns. The Browns defensive line has to make sure that whatever their gap is, they're able to hold that gap, at a very high level, play high level football on the interior. Don't allow, clean releases to that second level where you have offensive linemen going against linebackers, because when you have that situation, it gets very difficult on third level defenders to come down and to make clean tackles on Derrick Henry in the open field. Because even though he's big, he still can make defenders miss in the open field. He can stiff arm you. He can make you miss in terms of a juke because of poor pursuit angles. Derrick Henry is a very good overall running back. And it's going to be very big for, the linebackers and, again, the Browns defensive line. Sheldon Richardson, Myles Garrett, Olivier Vernon, Larry Ogunjobi, Adrian Claiborne, Porter Gustin. These are all players that you need to see have big games, at the point of attack. And the quicker you can get off blocks and force them inside or to hesitate, just the slightest hesitation can make the biggest difference between, a 2 or 3 yard gain versus a 7-8 yard gain. The more small gains you can have and keep the Titans behind the sticks improves the chances of getting them off the field. And this comes down to the 3 keys to winning the game. First, the Browns defense, they need to force a turnover. When you have 2 teams that can run the ball with a lot of success, whoever turns the ball over typically is going to be the one that's going to lose the game when you have 2 teams that can run the ball with a lot of success. And Ryan Tannehill has 16 turnover-worthy plays so far this season, which is 3rd highest in the NFL. So, the Browns defense has an opportunity going against a quarterback that has shown ability to make some mistakes. Second, when you both run the ball a lot, You have to win the time of possession. That means you have to have long, sustained drives. When you look at Baker Mayfield, he hasn't thrown interceptions over the last few weeks. You want to see that trend continue this week. Have a few touchdowns, but be able to, deliver the ball with some touch, rather that be to continue drives, throwing the right check downs, not throwing the ball in double coverage, and just finding the open man and taking your time. When you have two teams that like to run the ball, taking your time, reading the defense, understanding what the defense is trying to do against you, and, utilizing play action to get the ball downfield can really make the difference. This is going to be a game where field goals can come up huge. Even if you're not able to score touchdowns on long drives, field goals really make the difference. You don't want to have too many scoreless drives with two teams that like to run the ball. And, winning the time of possession is going to be a key for victory for both teams, especially for the Browns. And then lastly, this is the most important key of the game. Play a clean game in all three phases: offense, defense, special teams. The special teams unit with Mike Prefer has been very underwhelming. They had their biggest return last week with Dearness Johnson. And thank God, because I don't know what's been with this whole Donovan Peoples-Jones experiment on kickoff return. No more. He's been running into blockers too much. He only gets to about the 23, 22-yard line. And, you need big plays, from your secondary. Pinning them inside the 10-yard line where you force them to run the ball, but you can stack the box with more confidence. Obviously, that's kind of scary with Derrick Henry because he's been a player that's been able to run for 99-yard touchdowns on goal line situations, but big games from Jamie Gillen where he's pinning them inside the 10-yard line, stepping up in the red zone, being able to, make all your field goals, have solid kickoff return and punt return units, and have decent punt and kickoff returns on special teams. On defense, no blown coverage assignments. You have to keep everything in front of you and tackle an open field, get 11 man to the football. And then lastly, on the offense, you can't fumble the ball. That's why I talked about Harrison Bryant this week. Harrison Bryant has been a player that has turned the ball over, and you want to see them be able to run the ball with success. If they're able to run the ball with success, get the ball downfield, score, not throw interceptions, not fumble the ball, create a turnover, and play a clean game in all three phases. This is absolutely a game that the Browns need to win, and a Browns game that they can win. Last year, they were only down 9 points before the blowout started. You look at the fact that down 9 points with the ball into the fourth quarter, Baker Mayfield threw an interception, and then from there, he threw two other ones, and that pretty much put the game out of reach. If he plays a clean game and manages the game well, we win the time of possession. The Browns can absolutely win this game. So my score prediction for this week, I have the Browns winning a very close one. We've won, I think we're 5-0 this year in one possession games. This is likely going to be another one possession game. I see the Browns winning 24-21 on a game-winning field goal by Cody Parkey. This is the week that I feel like Cody Parkey is going to make his biggest impact on the game. So, again, I want to thank you guys so much for joining me for the Cleveland Browns Tailgate Show. Wanted to go ahead and wear that Odell Beckham jersey. This was actually the first time that Odell Beckham made an appearance for the Cleveland Browns was last year in the season opener against the Tennessee Titans. He's obviously out for the rest of the year with the torn ACL on injury reserve. So, again, you want to see the Cleveland Browns come out and have a huge game this week. I have full confidence in them that they'll come out, run the ball with success, have a clean game on offense. And as long as they're tackling in the open field and getting 11 hats to the football, this is a game that the Browns should win if they can force a turnover. Thank you guys again so much. Make sure you follow me on social media at SHWN Stevenson, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. I follow back. Love you guys. See you on the live game thread, and peace.